You've been endorsed by the Alabama College Democrats, Alabama Young Democrats, Birmingham Young Democrats for the Future Victory Fund, the Communication Workers of America. They labeled you as a Mom Demand Action Gun Sense candidate. You were endorsed by the Progressive Change Coalition, the Alabama Cannabis Coalition, the Birmingham Realtors Association, the AFL-CIO, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the Jefferson County Progressive Democratic Council, the Jefferson County New South Coalition, and the National Democratic Municipal Officials. That just doesn't happen by circumstance.
Yeah, that's definitely not a circumstantial thing or something that's happened by accident. That's been years of being intentional, being rooted in community, doing the things that community members say, like, hey, we need help with this, or we need someone to address our vacant lots, or we need someone to help with our business community. That's been years of work that I've been in the ground, doing the work, making investments in community, making investments in businesses, and making investments in organizations with my capital, my social capital. And so I think that's what this moment represents. Community members, organizations, they want someone that's going to be about the change and not just talk about it.
Brian Gunn is a candidate in the runoff for Birmingham City Council District 4 and has years of experience in community engagement and policy. In our 4th episode, Josh and I talk with Brian about his campaign and our quickly changing world. I'm Caroline Self.
I'm Josh Coleman.
And this is the Blueprint Alabama podcast. Today's September 26th, and the last time that we got together, Kimmel's show had been put on indefinite hiatus. We have had a win this week, which is that Kimmel is back. And for all of us who are fighting some of the authoritarian moves that the administration is making, I think that Kimmel back on the air, and I just came across that Sinclair is going to start carrying him again. So I think that's a huge win for democracy. So I wanted to share a clip from Kimmel's return and see what y'all have to say about that.
Walter Cronkite must be spinning in his grave right now. He's dead, right? Yeah. Look, I never imagined I would be in a situation like this. I barely paid attention in school. But one thing I did learn from Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and Howard Stern is that a government threat to silence a comedian the president doesn't like is anti-American. That's anti-American. And I am so glad we have some solidarity on that from the right and the left and from those in the middle like Joe Rogan. Maybe the silver lining from this is we found one thing we can agree on.
I'm with Jimmy. I know Jimmy said that freedom of speech is something that the left and the right should be advocating for and protecting. And like, if they're muzzling a comedian, Lord knows who they're after next. So I'm with Jimmy on that. Jimmy said we should be advocating and protecting freedom of speech. And I agree with him wholeheartedly on that issue.
Yeah, it's interesting. This really is kind of the one issue that most people have agreed on. It was, seeing Candace Owens and Joe Rogan come to Jimmy Kimmel's defense was something that wasn't on my bingo card ever. And I didn't think it was going to happen. I wasn't anticipating the pushback from the middle or the left or the right all together on this. And so I think that was very encouraging and shows that, when we try, we actually can work together and get stuff done.
Yeah, I agree. In this partisan time, it's so easy to make things about Democrats and Republicans. The Constitution and the protections that are in the Constitution are not partisan. And what I've learned from this is that pushback works. And you know what? Our coalitions are going to be different on every issue. Let's find those similarities and let's figure out how to work together. I was happy to see Kimmel too when he came back, that he did not seem to be muzzled. He was Jimmy Kimmel like he's always been, and he wasn't scared of Trump. There's a lesson in this for all of us that, maybe one voice can be silenced. All of our voices can't be silenced. So I'm hoping that we'll use this moment as a motivator to get out and speak more and realize that we can make a difference. Because if there hadn't been pushback, he would not have been brought back.
Nope.
Yeah, and brought back so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They usually don't listen to the left or the right But what they do listen to is money. And when we all came together and said we were going to start like boycotting and withholding our dollar, that's when people started listening.
Absolutely. The billionaires are running a lot of stuff right now, but at the same time, they get their money because we buy their products and use their products and all of that. So the more we can organize and use the power of the purse, the better off we'll be.
Yeah, I think Target learned that the hard way. And I think, it's still developing. We'll watch. I think Publix may be learning it the hard way this weekend. I don't know if you all saw, there's a Black Book event for authors, and Publix was the sole sponsor. And they asked for exclusivity rights, and then just this week backed out and cited ongoing tensions that they would suspend their sponsorship indefinitely. And so the organizers of this event now are left to foot the bill. Thank goodness, like folks on social media and TikTok have kind of band together and raised money to offset some of the costs. But, I think these corporations make these knee-jerk reactions or decisions and don't really think about who their consumers actually are. And I think folks are learning the hard way.
Yeah. Last week we were silencing comedians, and this week with James Comey, it seems like we're indicting people just because. But it's all part of the same thing. It's trying to silence dissent, and it's trying to silence people who aren't just going to do what dear leader says. And, I'm no James Comey fan. I think that James Comey is the reason that everything is been so messed up for the last 10 years. But I was also heartened by his reaction to being indicted. Have y'all seen that?
I haven't.
All right. I'm going to share this and let y'all see a little bit of what our friend James Comey had to say.
I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does.
I have so many thoughts on James Comey, but I feel like you said it. I'm no fan. I think the moment that we're in, it calls for everyone to speak up and encourage folks to do the right thing. So I'm happy that he is finally on that side.
Yeah, and that he's fighting back, that he's not like, let's just try to get a plea deal and then make this go away. I think this thing is going to go to trial. I read the indictment. It's the flimsiest thing I've ever seen. It's crazy that not a single career prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office was willing to sign on to this indictment. This is the beginning of a long line, I think, of attempts at political prosecution. But I hope that if everybody reacts like Comey, maybe the guardrails will hold. He was indicted, which did take a federal grand jury. But one of the counts he was not indicted on, and that's very rare. So we'll see what happens, but I'm glad that Comey is standing up to Trump, because what we're learning through all of this is if you stand up to a bully, the bully gets weaker. This is just another example of that. So in better news this week, Kamala Harris's book came out. And Josh and Brian, are you going to the event in Birmingham?
I will not be there. I waited to the last minute.
The 5 o'clock still has tickets available.
Oh, it does? Okay. Well, look, I may be in luck then.
Yeah, the 5 o'clock still has tickets available.
Okay.
And the way they did them in New York is there was the 5 o'clock and the 8 o'clock, and there were different moderators for each one. Josh and I have tickets to both.
Okay. Y'all are fanatics, right?
A little bit. At least it'll be a different conversation if they're different moderators. But we've, of course, been waiting for this book to come out for months. And Josh, I think you're further into it than I am. What are your thoughts on 100 days?
I don't know if I am, but I've reread the first 3 chapters, I think now twice, and I've listened to it. But the thing that I keep going back to is it was 107 days to mount a campaign for president of the United States. We are just happen to be on this podcast with someone who has mounted a campaign for city council in more time than that, and it still doesn't feel like that's been very long at all. The time crunch to me, when we were in it, it did not feel so bad. We were just there. Like, me and Caroline went to Georgia. We went to swing states. We did everything we could. We were in the moment to get her elected, and it did not feel like we were so rushed. But now, reflecting and starting to hear her story, I'm like, oh shit, like we didn't, what?
It was crazy. And like, I haven't gotten that far yet, but thinking about that first day, I remember after the Biden-Trump debate where, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And the way that I felt was, it is too late for us to do anything about it. There's no time for a primary. Even if he drops out, somebody's going to have to mount a campaign instantaneously. I thought that risk was greater than the risk of Biden staying in the race, just because it was such an impossible task. I've told Josh this story. In 2004, I worked on General Wesley Clark's presidential campaign, and he decided to run for president, kind of on a whim. It was like he decided one day, and the next day he was like running for president. And what I learned from that experience is you cannot build a train that's already speeding down the track.
Yeah.
And that was what I felt would happen if Biden were to drop out. It was why I was completely against the idea of any kind of primary or anything like that. But I also didn't have enough confidence in the Democratic Party to get behind Kamala immediately and not fight each other like we tend to do so frequently. And I just remember on that Sunday, I was getting ready to go see a play. President Biden made his announcement, and then you remember like 30 minutes later was when he endorsed Kamala, which thank God he did, and he wouldn't have done that if Vice President Harris hadn't encouraged him to, as we learn in the book. So I put on this shirt to go to the play, immediately after. And by the time I got home from that matinee, we already had Google Docs asking for our commitment as delegates. And I think she'd already spoken to Mayor Woodfin, right, Josh?
Yeah.
I have never been so impressed by a political operation as I was by what she was able to accomplish that day. And that night, our Alabama delegation had a Zoom at like 8 p.m. where we tried to say we were unanimously supporting her. And she did 30 minutes before we did. So to me, I'm like, this woman is a badass. She knows how to work. She knows how to put an organization together. And I think she can do this. And you know what? Like, it pisses me off so much whenever we hear Trump talk about the landslide and whatever, because she almost beat his ass.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to admit it. It was very close. If 3 swing states, it was something like 120,000 votes in 3 states had shifted, she would be president right now. So to me, the fact that she was able to do what she did in 107 days was miraculous.
Oh, yeah.
And it's why I will always be a Kamala Harris supporter. And whatever she decides to do next, I will be in her corner.
Well, the thing for me was the instant shift in energy. Me and Caroline, we had been out, we had been doing stuff for President Biden. Hell, just that week, I was right after the debate, I was on all the news stations here talking about how wonderful the president is. And I still believe that. And then I was stuck in LA in the airport because of the Delta outage that weekend when the president made his announcement. So, of course, all the news wanted to call back. I was in the airport doing Zoom calls with our local media talking about Kamala Harris and how qualified and ready she was. But what we saw was this shift in energy. And I don't think it's a knock on President Biden, but it's more of a credit of how Kamala Harris electrified folks and got people excited, not only within the Democratic Party, but also she electrified some Republicans to where they had to step up and fight like they didn't think they were going to have to.
Yeah, and to your point, Josh, I can just go back to my college days when I was the vice president of college Democrats for my local university, and that was Obama's first election, and how he electrified all of the students, how he electrified like all of the country, young people, older people, everyone in between. That's the same feeling I felt when Kamala announced that she was running. I was like, whoa, this is a huge moment, and we've got to take advantage of it. And I think she was able to in that 107 days, 107 days. Like, I just think about that from running like my own campaign. If I had 107 days to mount my campaign, that's going to be stressful. But yeah, just 107 days and the energy that she was able to send out over the entire country and everyone rallying behind her, I think that was monumental.
I do too. And I'm excited for her to come to Birmingham. And for anyone who's watching this, Vice President Harris will be in Birmingham on October 17th. And there are 2 shows. The 8 p.m. show is sold out. The 5 p.m. show, there are still tickets available. So, I do hope that you will come out. I think it's a great thing that she's coming to Birmingham. I mean, Alabama is not a swing state yet. So the fact that Vice President Harris is coming here is very special. And I do hope that we'll all, give her a very warm welcome, because, something else with her that I think about a lot is that she knew when she said yes that day that the task before her was nearly impossible and could impact her future political career in a way that wasn't good. And she did it anyway because that's what the stakes were. So I think she is a profile in courage, and I'm excited that she's back out there. All right. So we've taken it back to Birmingham a little bit as far as the vice president coming, but let's take it back to Birmingham in a very local way. So Brian Gunn is running for city council in a runoff on October 7th. So Brian, tell us who you are and why you're running.
Absolutely. Thank you, Caroline and Josh, for having me on. So I'm Brian Gunn. For those of you who don't know me, I am a native of Birmingham, Alabama. I am the child of Walter and Carolyn Gunn. They are products of 1960s Birmingham. My mom grew up in Collegeville and graduated from Carver High School. My dad grew up in Kingston and graduated from Parker High School. And then my grandmother on my mom's side, she grew up in Hooper City. And then my paternal grandmother, she lived in Woodlawn and Airport Hills. And so just thinking of all of that has transpired, like my dad growing up in Kingston, my mom growing up in Collegeville, like District 4 runs through my blood. That's the district that I'm running for City Council, District 4. I was born in District 4. I was born at Cooper Green Hospital and brought home by my mom and dad to Norwood, where most of my younger years were, playing out in the playground and at my aunt's house in Norwood Elementary. And then from there, my family moved us to Eastlake, which is part of Eastlake is in District 4 too. And so lived there. And then my dad's job, of course, moved us to Louisiana and New Jersey. And so we stayed there for a few years. And then I came back to Birmingham in 2012, where I had an opportunity to serve my community. When I was gone from Birmingham and living in Louisiana and New Jersey, I always had this natural inclination to want to come back to Birmingham because it's something that my parents had instilled in my brothers and I growing up, that we should never forget where we come from and we should always give back to our community. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to do once I graduated college. So I graduated from Louisiana Tech University and came back to Birmingham in 2012. Where I had an opportunity to serve with AmeriCorps. So if people aren't familiar with AmeriCorps, it is the domestic version of Peace Corps. And so instead of serving, across the country and other countries, you serve right here in your own backyard in communities that birthed you and you grew up in. And so I had an opportunity to serve with 2 local nonprofits that dealt with community development and economic development. And so I did that for 6 years in the city of Birmingham. I worked in the Woodlawn community. I worked in the Inslee community, and I worked in communities in between that needed assistance to, grow their communities, whether that was recruiting businesses or retaining businesses, promoting their districts, or encouraging economic vitality in those various neighborhoods that I worked in. And so I did that for 6 years. One of the things that I'm proud about during that time was creating the Woodlawn Street Market. A lot of people don't know that the Woodlawn Street Market was started by me, but it was almost like a fluke. Like we thought we were just doing like a little market in Woodlawn to, give community members an opportunity to, partake in businesses, have food, try foods from across the country and things of that nature. But it ended up evolving into like a business incubator. And so people that had business ideas in the community had a chance and opportunity to come to the Woodlawn Street Market to validate their assumptions about their businesses before investing in a brick and mortar business. And so that evolved from like a handful of vendors to well over, I want to say by the time I left, there were about 40 vendors that started coming to the street market. And then fast forward from working at those economic development and community development organizations, I ended up going to work for two public relations firms here in Birmingham. I did public policy work, worked some with Representative Sewell's office to get some policies passed, and worked with a handful of local organizations in the city of Birmingham while I was there. At those particular public relations organizations. And then fast forward to now, where I'm currently working for a national organization that's working to reshape the criminal justice system by making data accessible to community members. And so all of that has led me to this moment to want to run for office for District 4 City Council in the city of Birmingham.
Yeah, we always say that we want folks to come back, right? Grow up, come back to Birmingham, offer yourself up. And from your story, that's what you did. You grew up here, you were born here, you're in District 4, you came back to Birmingham, and now you're running for office. But like, what was that one moment that said, okay, now's the time, I need to do this. I'm the person that can actually make a change in this district. What was that moment?
Oh, so that moment was, it had been, I guess, growing in me for a few years. Just thinking about my college days and being over the college Democrats. And also, I was the vice president of the North Louisiana students for Barack Obama. And so I led that whole campaign there. And so it's been in me for years, but I think just the moment, getting to where I am now and learning all the things and getting all the wins under my belt and being able to do economic development and community development and public policy, which is important, and also community engagement. I think all of those initiatives that I've been involved in and all those skills that I've been learning over the few years have culminated to this point now, where I can step up to be that leader and advocate for District 4. Because just thinking about the last 4 years in District 4, things have largely remained the same in District 4. And I've heard from community members, even before I announced my candidacy to run for District 4, that there were issues that had gone unaddressed, and things need to change in District 4. Just looking at the overgrown lots, the vacant lots that we have, the lack of economic development that we have in District 4, and then some other things. But everyone was reaching out to me before I was even a candidate. And so just thinking about all the relationships that I had before announcing my candidacy, that's why people came to me to get things done. And so just thinking about the relationships that I had and how I was able to facilitate getting things done in the community, I think that catapulted me to wanting to run now, because like I said, over the last 4 years, things have stayed the same, and we haven't had an advocate for District 4 that advocated for safer streets, that's advocated for economic development, that's advocated for our small business community in District 4. And so just thinking about that track record that I have in doing that work over the last decade, I think that has culminated to this point now where I can run for city council because I have the proven experience and the track record to do that.
I read an interview with you, and there was a line that stuck out, and it was, you said something about bridging truth with action.
Yes, action only moves at the speed that people can trust you, and so people have to have trust in you that you're going to deliver. And so, just thinking about the last decade that I've been doing the work in Birmingham and in District 4, and how community has reached out to me before I announced my candidacy to get things done, I think that's huge. And so that got us to this point that we're in now. And so it is super important that community can trust you and that they can trust you to deliver results. Because if you don't have the results, the community is going to stay the same and they're going to become disinvested in the whole political process. And that's gotten us to where we are now. Just thinking about District 4, the voter turnout during the general election, it was super low. And I think that's partly because people have become disinterested in what we have in District 4. And so I think that people being able to trust their elected representative, that they're going to not only talk about doing things, but they're going to actually deliver results, is going to move the city forward and this whole democratic process.
What are a few of the tangible things you want to do, as far as, like, I'm sure you have a to-do list. These are the things I want to do, and this is how I'm going to get there. What are a couple of those so that, if you are elected, like, the constituents are going to hold you accountable, right?
Absolutely. As they should, right? So just thinking about the top 3 priorities that I've communicated over the last few months. One is reducing gun violence in our city and in District 4. So working extensively with the mayor's office and the administration to come up with plausible solutions to reduce gun violence in our community, whether that's lighting up the streets, whether that's addressing and tackling vacant lots or blighted properties in our city. We have to work together with the administration. And not only do we have to work together with the administration to identify solutions, we've got to work with our state legislature. So we've got to work with them as well as a representative of District 4 to find and identify legislation that we can utilize on the local level to hold these property owners accountable and hold some of the property owners that have been contaminating. I know that's a strong word, contaminating our communities. So we've got to make sure that I do that. And then outside of reducing gun violence, we've got to make sure that we focus on economic development and economic opportunity. Because just thinking about District 4, there hasn't been that much economic opportunity in District 4 as you compare it to other districts. We have the coke plant that has happened over the last 4 years, and that's probably one of the biggest wins that we've had in the last 4 years for District 4. So we've got to make sure that we make District 4 attractive to attract jobs to the district. That's one of the things that I was talking to some neighborhood association members yesterday about. And they were adamant, like, we need jobs because our young folks are leaving Birmingham to go to other municipalities, not only across the Southeast, but right here in Alabama. They're leaving Birmingham, going to Huntsville. And so it's like Huntsville is our competition. Like, we have in-state competition, and we need to identify ways that we can make Birmingham more attractive and make District 4 more attractive to recruit businesses and make sure we retain businesses as well. So our communities, our residents can have good paying jobs in the city of Birmingham. And they don't have to go to Huntsville. So I love Huntsville. My folks lived there for a few years, but Huntsville is competition. And then the third thing, we talked about economic development and reducing gun violence. We've got to focus on community development. And when I say community development, we've got to beef up our enforcement of overgrown lots. We've got to beef up our enforcement of making sure that we hold these property owners that are willfully neglectful in our communities accountable to the blight that they're imposing on our neighborhoods throughout District 4 in the city of Birmingham. And so that's one of the things I'm really adamant about, community development. And then on the community development front, too, we've also got to look at the quality of life for residents. I know that's a big thing now. And that's causing a lot of people to leave Birmingham to flee to our suburban counterparts. The quality of life. When I say quality of life, we've got to look at our recreational centers. We've got to look at our swimming pools that we have in the community, and we've got to look at our park system to make sure that those systems that we have in place right now, that they're protected and they're invested in.
Some beautiful green spaces and parks in District 4. You have real gems in the community that are constant folks always talking about spaces. And I know, the pools has been a hot button issue.
Yeah, the pools have been a hot button issue in District 4. Just thinking about when we were gearing up for the general election, one of the biggest pools that got reopened that had been closed for some time was the Collegeville pool. And just seeing the kids out there playing in the pool and having a good time, I think that meant the world to that community. And of course, it wasn't without candidates fighting and advocating to get it reopened, because it was not on the incumbent, I don't even know what to say. It wasn't on his radar to open it back up. So I think that making sure that those pools and things like that are open and accessible to community is going to be a win to retain people in our neighborhoods, but also to recruit people to the neighborhoods.
Yeah, you talk about how voter turnout was so low in the general election. Traditionally, runoffs have lower voter turnout. Why should people vote in this election? Why is it important?
Yeah.
And what difference can their voice make?
Yeah, and so why I think this runoff is so important. I'm reminded of a quote that I've heard some years ago from a previous elected official here in Birmingham. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And so I ask community members, are they satisfied with what they have right now? And if your answer is yes, then go for it. If your answer is no, then, vote for change. Vote for someone that has a proven track record to get things done. Vote for someone that has advocated and worked with nonprofits across the city to make change in communities from the west side to the east side.
I mean, voter turnout was low, but it wasn't any different than it normally is, right? And
Okay.
so, but the interesting thing about the results to me is 70% of the district voted against the current incumbent. And 41% of those people that voted for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, after that, I mean, I think we hear why. You've been rooted in community. You've been doing the work. You've put in, the people know you. People are familiar with what they get, right? And so now I think you're just amplifying that message. And, you had 4 people in this race. And so it was hard for anybody not to come out of a runoff in that situation. And then you've had both 2 other opponents publicly endorse and support you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that was a huge moment when those 2 candidates that helped to get that nearly 70% of the vote came out and supported me, because it wasn't a fluke that they got that much, vote, because the community was tired. They were, had been sold things and told things that had never been delivered to them, or, and things had stayed the same for the last 4 years. And I think people knew that. And so that's why they wanted change. That's why they voted for change. Almost 70% of the district voted for change and said that they were ready for change. And that's what I'm carrying into the runoff. People are ready for change. They want someone that is ready on day one to serve. And so, like, on day one, I'd be ready to get in there and to make things happen that haven't happened over the last 4 years. And just thinking about the things that I've accomplished over the last decade, I think that's what the community is voting for.
And not only those 2 endorsements, I mean, from what we see, you have a broad coalition of support from community members and faith leaders, and you've been endorsed by the Alabama College Democrats, Alabama Young Democrats, Birmingham Young Democrats for the Future Victory Fund, the Communication Workers of America. They labeled you as a Mom Demand Action Gun Sense candidate. You were endorsed by the Progressive Change Coalition, the Alabama Cannabis Coalition, the Birmingham Realtors Association, the AFL-CIO, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the Jefferson County Progressive Democratic Council, the Jefferson County New South Coalition, and the National Democratic Municipal Officials. That just doesn't happen by circumstance.
Yeah, that's definitely not a circumstantial thing or something that's happened by accident. That's been years of being intentional, being rooted in community, doing the things that community members say, like, hey, we need help with this, or we need someone to address our vacant lots, or we need someone to help with our business community. That's been years of work that I've been in the ground, doing the work, making investments in community, making investments in businesses, and making investments in organizations with my capital, my social capital. And so I think that's what this moment represents. community members, organizations, they want someone that's going to be about the change and not just talk about it.
I know that you've been doing a lot of door-to-door canvassing. What have some of the reactions been? Is that something that voters are used to?
Yes, so they are used to people coming on their doors and knocking. But the thing that made the voters upset is that when people come and knock during election season and you never hear from them again or you never see them, that's one of the things that under my administration, I will make sure that we are, out front and in the community and rooted in community, and make sure that we are attending neighborhood association meetings on a consistent and regular basis so we can hear from our neighborhoods. I think that's one of the biggest things, as things progress in community. City councilors, they need to be there. They need to hear from community. They need to have the heart of the community, because once you have the heart and pulse of the community, that's going to influence how you legislate on the council dais. And so we need that heart and pulse of the community so we can make sure that we're advocating for all of the things that our district deserves and needs.
I mean, you have a built-in mechanism. Most people struggle, and in other places, to put together events, to connect with people. That's one of my favorite things about Birmingham is that we have the 99 neighborhood structure.
Yep.
You have the neighborhoods in your district meet monthly and provide an opportunity for direct engagement. And it's already done. You will not have to do anything except show up and listen and be present and deliver.
Yep, and that's half the battle. Community members, they want their community, they want access to their city councilor. They want to know that their city councilor is going to show up to their meetings, hear their concerns, and advocate for their concerns on the council dais. Over the last 4 years, that's something that hasn't been present for community members and residents in District 4.
I have a similar campaign question. Next year, I think we are going to have a lot of people run for office who've never run for office before. This was your first time, correct?
Yes.
What lessons have you learned that you think will be helpful to people who are considering running in 2026?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've learned, and this is one of the earlier lessons that I've learned when I came back to Birmingham, start building those relationships early on. Because you're going to need those relationships going into the election. And people are going to hold you accountable. They're going to question who you are. They're going to question your motives. Why are you running? Where have you been over the last few years? Why haven't we seen you? And you're going to have to answer to that. But I don't want it to be a hindrance or deterrent from running, but just get started early before you even if you have the desire to run, start building those relationships, start getting involved in your local community organizations, start getting involved in your neighborhood associations if you have them. And then you'll be able to better articulate the needs of the community and why you're running, and give hope to community members that have been neglected for years. And you'll be able to, better ascertain the needs and desires for community members. But also you'll be able to, I want to also say, too, do it afraid. Even if you're afraid. I'm an introvert. I would have never thought in a million years that I'd be putting myself out in front like this in an extroverted position where I have to, talk to community members. I've done it for work, but doing it, on my own, it's taking me out of my comfort zone. You're going to be uncomfortable. So just get ready for that. It's part of the whole process. You have to take that whole moment serious and make sure that you're rooted and grounded, and you're surrounding yourself with people that will hold you accountable and that will push you into your greatness. And I know you're probably going to be afraid, but I think if you put yourself out there, the universe is going to conspire to make sure that you do what needs to be done and that you have the resources. That's what I've seen in my own coming out and making myself available for candidacy to be a candidate for District 4. I put myself out there, and then everything just started conspiring around me to help me to become the candidate that I am today.
For people watching this, what do you need to help you get across the finish line?
Yeah, so when I immediately think about first needs, one, volunteers. We're going to need volunteers to help us to cross that finish line. So we're going to need volunteers at the precincts. We're going to need volunteers to help door knock, and we're going to need volunteers to continue phone banking. So if you're wanting to volunteer with the campaign, go to brianforbham.com and you can sign up there. But we're also going to need, and this is something that I've learned through my campaign, that campaigns, they need money. They need money to win. And so if you're wanting to donate to a campaign that's all about community, that's all about vision, and that's all about moving District 4 forward, and not only District 4, but the city of Birmingham forward, support a candidate that has a proven track record. You can make donations through my campaign website, brianforbham.com.
Looking at the future, Josh and I with Blueprint, we talk a lot about what the future is going to look like 10 years from now and not just tomorrow. And I think even looking at Birmingham, you can look at it the same way. Do you have a vision of what you want Birmingham and District 4 to look like 10 years from now?
Absolutely. I want Birmingham to be a beacon of hope for human rights. I want Birmingham to be one of the most vibrant cities in the Southeast, where people from all across the country and the world can come and realize their dreams and make their dreams come into fruition. I want Birmingham to be like the beacon for entrepreneurial spirit and building an entrepreneurial ecosystem. I also want Birmingham to remember its roots. Birmingham is rooted in the civil rights movement, and it's been a critical part of the civil rights movement. And so we got to, even now, I'm not like the next 10 years, but now, presently, in the next 3 years, we've got to continue to be that voice and those foot soldiers to make sure that we protect all of our rights, because our rights are being infringed upon every day. And so that we've got to make sure that we are that foot soldier for the world, to make sure that they learn the lessons that we've learned, and to make sure that they are readily able to replicate any of the things that we've done to make sure that they protect human rights across the globe. And so that's one of the things that I see for Birmingham in the next 10 years, is that we're this beacon for hope for the rest of humanity.
You said that about foot soldiers, and that reminded me of my favorite supporter of yours, which is Miss Gunn. And I didn't know her, but, I met her through you, but I went home and looked up her story because, she mentioned something about Bethel Baptist Church and Fred Shuttlesworth and being a member of the church. But then you look her up and she's got this legacy, all these, she's in all these videos and, oral history projects of really District 4 of, she's been there her entire life. And just thinking about her, she's 96?
Yep. Just turned 96.
And she's out there active, stomping the ground, preaching the gospel of Brian Gunn.
Yeah, and that's definitely encouraging when you see residents like Ms. Gunn, who's 96 years old, who is still out there advocating for her neighborhood, who's still out there advocating for the needs of not only her street, but her city. That's inspiring. And there are so many other people like that across the city and in District 4 that are so concerned about the district and the progress of the city that they are still involved in the voting process. I just think about my own grandmother. My grandmother, she was 96 when she transitioned. But that's part of the reason why I vote today. Every election that I have an opportunity to vote in, I vote in it because it's sacred to me, because my grandmother, she grew up in a time where she wasn't able to vote, but then she had the opportunity to vote. And so just knowing that and how close that is to me, a lot of people think that people weren't able to vote hundreds of years ago. No, this was fairly recent. And so I cherish that. I love the residents that get out there and they're still advocating, they're still showing up, and they're still fighting for change today.
You also have other foot soldiers in the district that are supporting you. I think about Reverend Webb, who is, a foot soldier herself from the 1963 campaign and is still fighting and for her neighborhood that's in District 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to have her support has been monumental in this campaign. And it's been encouraging just to see that people that have fought for so long, they are inspired by my campaign to keep fighting and to keep the momentum going in District 4 and to build on the legacy that they built for generations that are here now. And I think that's so important because now it's almost like a symbolic passing of the baton. They are passing the baton on to a generation that's inspired to keep the torch going and keep the flame going and lit to make sure that we move our communities and city forward so they benefit everyone. And I think that's huge.
So one of the things that we do with Blueprint that's so important is we have these listening sessions. And a big part of that is people from the older generation speaking and sharing their experiences so the younger generation understands, and vice versa. And I think about, especially being in Alabama, how fortunate we are to still have people who lived through the civil rights movement who are here and can share their stories with us. What have you learned over the course of your campaign from the older generation? There's obviously respect from you for them.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's also been some knowledge imparted as well that hopefully we can share with others too.
Yeah, absolutely. The legacy that they have left behind, one of courage, one of strength, one of tenacity, that is what keeps me going in this campaign. Just thinking about the work that they've done to get us to this point where we have the opportunity to run for an election. Just me thinking about me being a Black boy from Birmingham, Alabama, and just having the opportunity to step up and participate in the democratic election process. I think that is so huge. And then, too, just thinking about the work that they facilitated over the last few years, and they're continuing to hit the pavement and advocate for the needs of their communities. They're continuing to advocate for the needs of people that are oppressed. They're continuing to advocate for individuals that need representation on the city council dais and on the state level and on the federal level. Like, that is huge. If someone that's 96 years old and someone that has gone through the civil rights movement is continuing to do the fight and do the work, why can't I? Why can't I do the work and follow in their footsteps to continue to advocate for the needs of individuals that may not have or feel like they have a voice to get things done in their community? Why can't I be that person to continue to advocate for inclusiveness in our city? Why can't I be that person to continue to advocate for the rights of all of humanity in District 4 and in the city of Birmingham?
What is your closing argument for this campaign?
Yeah, so the runoff election is October the 7th. And as I've been going out door knocking, I've been hearing the same thing over and over again. We need someone in District 4 that's going to advocate for the needs of District 4, someone that's going to advocate and work with the current administration to get things done in District 4, someone that's going to protect our park systems in District 4, someone that's going to advocate for reduce gun violence in District 4, and someone that has the knowledge to work with existing relationships in the city to get things done, whether that's on the state level, the federal level, or the local level, to get things done for District 4. We need someone like that. And as I said earlier, if we do the same thing, we're going to get the same results. And so I want to ask the community to show up on October the 7th to vote for someone that has a proven track record of getting things done, and someone that will be ready on day one to handle the challenges and meet the challenges of District 4 with action. And so I think that's someone that is me. And so I would be so honored if District 4 would show up for me, to support me on October the 7th. They will pray for me, continue to pray for me, and then vote for me on October the 7th. Action over excuses all day.
Well, thank you, Brian, so much for sharing your story with us and your vision for Birmingham and District 4. And we appreciate you running and wish you the best of luck on October 7th.
Thank you so much, Caroline and Josh.